Good morning, everyone. It is Valentine's Day, and I am so pleased to be here on Valentine's Day to give you a little look at all of my quilts with hearts. So today we're going to do a little bit of a show and tell, and I have a big pile of quilts right over here that I'm going to be able to show you. So I love doing applique quilts, and some people might call me the Queen of Hearts. I have designed a tool that makes beautiful little heart shapes for your applique quilts. And I want to show you how to use the Hearts and More tools today. And I'm going to show you some of the quilts that we made with this tool. Now, many of you know me from the Leaves Galore tools, and the Leaves Galore tools also make applique shapes. So I will be talking to you a little bit about the Gradations quilt today as well. Good morning, Beverly. Good morning, Ellie. We are here live on Facebook, both with our Ahead of the Curve members and with the general public, presenting to you a series on applique quilts. I love applique, and I love to share that passion with all of you. So by using my Leaves Galore tools and my Hearts and More tools, I am able to make all of the quilts that you see around me today, and the little trunk show that I'm going to show you of my hearts on applique quilts. All right, so I'm going to put my tools away for now, but before we leave today, I'll do a demonstration for you on how to cut with those tools. I have a camera right here overhead, and I'll be able to change my camera to my workstation and show you how to cut with those tools. Before we get started, I do want to tell you that we have a special promotion going on right now for those people that want to learn how to do fusible applique with me. We had a program called Fabulous Fusibles last week, and during Fabulous Fusibles, I offered this course on gradations for those people that took the Fabulous Fusibles class. Now, of course, if you missed the Fabulous Fusibles class, you can still get into gradations. We have the gradations program promotion going on through February 19th. So if you sign up for gradations, the course, before February 19th, you're going to get a Leaves Galore tool to make this quilt, along with the Grace True Grips that I use on the back of the tool that prevent those tools from slipping. Now, you'll also get free shipping on this template right to your door so that you can get started with your very own gradations quilt. Now, why is that quilt called gradations? Well, we use a type of fabric that is graded from one edge of the fabric to the other. I'm going to grab one of those gradations fabrics because these are so beautiful. These are the fabrics from Sew Boutique, and they grade from one color to the opposite end. Now I just washed all this fabric, so it's a little bit wrinkly, but you get the idea. You have that gradation fabric, and by using the gradation fabric, we're able to come up with this beautiful design for our quilt very easily. It's very easy cutting, very easy fusing and stitching, and the fabric does all the work for you. Now, of course, you can make this quilt without using gradation fabric, and I've still graded my quilt from light to dark using scraps. I used all the leftover red fabrics from this quilt right here. And when I do a quilt that's just two colors, I have reds in every different shade and tone. So they go from very light reds, very yellow reds, all the way through very blue reds, more purpley reds, and very brown reds. So you get a wide variety of colors, and I used all the leftovers from these reds to make my gradations quilt. So I could still grade the quilt from the brightest and lightest reds in the center all the way out to the darker reds in the corner. So working with gradation fabrics is a really fun thing to do, and making this quilt is a great way to practice your rotary cut applique skills. Now, I'm here with a lot of my members of Ahead of the Curve, and for our Ahead of the Curve members, there is a promotion on the gradations as well. So look at your emails for our members just to see what that promotion is. You can get the gradations program at SuePellinDesigns.com. And all of the patterns that I'm going to show you today are also available at SuePellinDesigns.com. So I'm going to put that right up on the screen for you so that you can see the website. SuePellinDesigns.com is where I have all of my tools, all of my patterns, and I want to dive into those patterns today to show you how I do these beautiful rotary cut applique quilts. Now, how did I get involved in making hearts? You know, I don't know if this quilt has anything to do with it, but years ago, my son ended up in the hospital, and it was very touch and go there for a little while. We were it was a little scary time in our life, and because I belong to a fabulous quilt guild, they rallied around me, and here's all my little friends in the quilt guild who rallied around me and made me little heart blocks for this quilt. And I tell you, this quilt just warmed my heart. And I want to thank Kathy Sperino for making this beautiful block in the center with all the little friends. Their hearts are embellished with little gems, and she designed this beautiful floral applique in the center. Then the guild members made all these incredible hearts to put around that center block. Well, I was presented with this gift just weeks after my son went into the hospital, and I'm not sure if this had anything to do with it, but all of these little hearts just made me smile. They made me so happy. They made me feel that love from my guild members. And I'm now kind of addicted to hearts. So I have a whole lot of heart quilts that I want to show you today. Such a beautiful gift and such a heartfelt gift. It really is a beautiful thing. Now I sleep with this quilt every night. It is on my bed every night. And so many members donated blocks after the deadline that we also put blocks all over the back to use as the label. And people wrote some beautiful sentiments on the blocks on the back. Isn't that beautiful? I just love belonging to a guild of like-minded quilters that love to bring comfort to other quilters and to other people in the world through their quilts. So this is just such a beautiful thing. So I don't know, is that what made me the Queen of Hearts? Now, why do I say that? Well, I just love making hearts in my quilts, and I want to show you one of the very simple little hearts that you can make using the Hearts and More tools. This pattern I've done this in this red coloration, and it's got that beautiful pieced border on it. So it's kind of funny. A lot of people do applique on the borders of their quilt, and then they'll piece the center of the quilt and do a little applique border. Well, I wanted to do the opposite. I made the applique blocks for the center of the quilt, and then I made this little pieced border. Now, when I made this quilt pattern, which is called Conversation Hearts, I was thinking of the conversation hearts that you get in the little boxes at Valentine's Day, those candy hearts. And I want to show you the quilt made with those little candy hearts. So that exact same quilt I made in pastel colors, using these beautiful American-made fabrics. This was a line of fabrics. It was all solids that were made in the USA. So this quilt was made with my American-made fabrics. And you'll notice that I stenciled little messages inside the hearts with red ink, just like those little conversation hearts that you get in the little cardboard boxes at Valentine's Day time. So this pattern, available on my website on SuePellinDesigns.com, is Conversation Hearts. And those little conversation messages, those little text messages, one says text to me, one says kisses and hugs, X's and O's, one says love you, first kiss, real love, be mine. All those sweet little messages are in a stencil inside the pattern. So you can stencil your own messages on your conversation hearts. So I do love this pattern. Now when I cut out those little hearts, it gives me a bonus piece of fused fabric. So I was able to make that quilt in miniature. Isn't it sweet? I really should have this hanging for Valentine's Day. It has the miniature little pieced border from the leftover pieces from the big quilt, and it has the little miniature conversation hearts with all of those special little messages stenciled on. Now on this quilt, I just tossed those hearts in every different direction, just like I dumped out that box of candies on my countertop. On the red version, which I've just thrown on the floor here, but I want to get that out for you. On the red version, I have all the hearts going in the same direction. So this is a very planned quilt. It's very meticulous, done in a certain way, and it's beautiful this way, but it's also fun done the other way as well. So all of these patterns, you can make them your own by just manipulating the blocks, moving them around, putting specific little messages on there. I'm going to show you a quilt that has a beautiful little message on it that is really near and dear to my heart, and I'm going to save that one for a little bit. So my heart quilts are all made with the Hearts and More tool. So this heart here is the same size as the hearts on the Conversation Hearts quilt. So how is that heart made? Well, it's made by cutting that heart shape on the fold of our fabric. And I'm going to show you how to cut out this heart in just a few minutes. I have to get through some of those quilts because my rotating mat is buried under all of my quilts, and I want to cut my hearts out on a rotating mat. When you cut with your rotary cutter around these curves, using a rotating mat is safer, and it's also a lot easier to cut out the hearts, circles, ovals, teardrops. Anything that you can cut with this tool should be cut on a rotating mat. So I just mentioned hearts, teardrops, circles, everything that we can cut with this tool. It's not just hearts. There are so many additional shapes we can cut with these tools. So in a couple of weeks, I'm going to be doing a product demonstration of these tools. And in that product demonstration, I will show more than just the hearts. Today, we're going to focus on hearts because it's Valentine's Day. And I want to wish you all a very happy Valentine's Day. I hope you have somebody in your life that you would like to send a little heartfelt message to. And maybe you want to make them a little quilt with some hearts on it. So let me go through some of those quilts. Let's see, what do I want to do first? All right, so the quilt that's right in front of me first, I'm just going to do them in the order that I picked them up in. This is a bouquet quilt. Well, I don't know about you, but I was so blessed that this morning, when I woke up this morning, I had a bouquet of flowers on my dining room table from my husband and a nice little Valentine's Day card. So I felt so blessed, and it was such a beautiful little bouquet to brighten up my day. So bouquet is perfect for Valentine's Day. And in that bouquet are some hearts. But what you'll really notice, this feature that's really popular, is this heart border. That heart border is also cut with the exact same tool that I just showed you. So not only am I going to show you the straight edge hearts that you can cut out with that tool, I'm going to show you these curved edge hearts as well. That heart border is really fun to do, and I'll give you a brief demonstration of that in just a little bit after I uncover my rotating mat. So bouquet is one of the patterns on my website. You can buy that pattern separately. Now some of these patterns are going to be in my books. Others are separate patterns, and bouquet happens to be a separate pattern that you can purchase and make this on your own. Now, if you're not real comfortable with doing fusible applique, we do have lessons in fusible applique also on the website. There are some free videos, but the best way to learn how to do rotary cut fusible applique is to take a workshop with me. So the gradations course that I mentioned at the beginning of this session is the perfect entry point. It's the perfect place to get started with rotary cut applique with a very simple project. It gives you all of the basics that you need to dive into some of these more complex quilts. All right, here we have a sample that we make during our Hearts and More Techniques workshop. These workshops that I'm mentioning, these are things that I used to teach when I traveled around the country to different quilt shows. Now I'm teaching these workshops online for my members only. The workshops that I do live every month are for members only, and our membership Ahead of the Curve is open right now for any new members. So if you'd like to take workshops like this one to do Hearts and More Techniques and learn how to use those Hearts and More tools, this is the perfect opportunity. Take a little workshop like this, which is available in our on-demand workshops for Ahead of the Curve members. Both Gold and Platinum Leaf members have access to this workshop in the on-demand section of our membership. So this is Hearts and More Techniques. It's going to show you all kinds of different techniques, and everything on this quilt was rotary cut. I show you how to cut every shape, how to fuse it, and how to stitch it in this workshop. So that is Hearts and More Techniques. All right, I love using batik fabrics. Batik fabrics are so beautiful to use because they finish up beautifully with rotary cutting and then fusing and stitching. But I use all different kinds of fabrics. I'm going to use batiks, I'm going to use printed cottons, I will use solid sometimes. Every different type of fabric works. You just have to know the right techniques in order to fuse and stitch those different types of fabrics to get the best edges possible. Barbara Collins, welcome. Happy Valentine's Day from Story City, Iowa. Well, welcome. Thank you. That was heartfelt. Oh, yes, absolutely. The quilt that my guild members made me was so heartfelt. I just love it. What a loving and lovely quilt. Thank you, Bev. Happiest Valentine's Day to everybody, and good morning from Idaho, Becky Koopman. Happy Valentine's Day from Cape Cod. I know who that is. That must be Debbie. Hi, Sue. It's Doreen from Vermont. Happy Valentine's Day. Good morning and happy Valentine's Day from Margaret Smith. Excellent. So nice to hear from all of you. Now, you will see a whole lot of quilts in my background here, and a couple are not heart quilts. We just had our temperature quilt final session last night, so you'll see my 2022 temperature quilt up there on the wall. You'll also see gradations in the background, and that's that workshop or that online course that I highly recommend for anybody who wants to learn this rotary cut applique technique. We do have a special going on for gradations up until February 19th. All right, another quilt that I just love because it's so easy to make and it's such a fun technique. It looks a little bit like a curved pieced quilt, but all of these hearts, let me try to unfold it here. All of these hearts are appliqued, but it starts as squares. Now, when we cut this little heart shape from the corner of our squares, we're going to get a bonus heart shape. So we cut out this heart shape from the corner of our square. We get the bonus heart shape that we can fuse onto another square, and we get 2 of hearts. 2 hearts for the price of 1, right? We fuse 1 piece of fabric, cut that heart shape from the corner of the fused fabric, and then we get our bonus heart. So this quilt is called 2 of Hearts because that's the way it's made, 2 hearts at a time. I used a layer cake of Tula Pink fabric for this quilt. It's such a pretty and fun quilt, and 2 of Hearts is available on my website as a pattern. Now, have we done 2 of Hearts in the membership yet? I think we have. So if you're in the membership and you've taken 2 of Hearts, you will have a video for that in your email. So all of our members take these workshops with me, and after you take a workshop, you get the video of that workshop in an email. Now, I have 2 of these heart quilts, and I have one that's in blue and one that's in red. I'm going to show you the one that's in blue because I've shown you the red one so many other times for those of you that have been with me for a while here. And this blue one is also made from Kaffe Fassett fabrics. And what I love about this pattern is how easy it is to make. This one is called Unchain My Heart, and it has that oval chain and the heart that are all cut with the Hearts and More tools. The fun thing about this quilt is it's done on 7.5-inch strips of fabric. So if you can imagine a jelly roll quilt and how fast that goes with 2.5-inch strips, imagine how fast you can put together these 7-inch strips in the background and then embellish that pieced background with just a few little chains and hearts. Now there is another chain up here on the top. There's another chain that goes across the bottom. So it's a sweet little quilt called Unchain My Heart, and that is also a pattern from the website. And yes, I believe we have done Unchain My Heart as a workshop for our members. Now our members have been with me for over 3 or just about 3 years now. And so over the course of those 3 years, I've been teaching 2 workshops every month. So that is, oh my goodness, 72 workshops that we've taught for our members that they've been able to take on a monthly basis to make some of these beautiful quilts. Now, one of those quilts that we've made is called He Loves Me. Now, this is my little blue version of He Loves Me. Not only does it have the open heart in the center, but it has those beautiful little daisies. And as you can see, we're plucking one leaf after the other off of those daisies. He loves me not. And of course, we end with He Loves Me. I love this little quilt. And I want to show you a few special things about this quilt. First of all, when you cut out the heart shape for this quilt, and we use this Hearts and More tool once again to cut out the heart shape for the outside of the heart, and a different size tool for cutting the heart shape for the inside of the heart. These tools come in 4 different sizes with 8 different circular ends. So you can make all of these shapes in at least 8 different sizes, and actually many, many more. So when you cut out the inside of this heart, you get a little bonus heart. And I love it when we have bonus pieces from our quilts, because we can make bonus quilts. So after making He Loves Me, you can make Valentine. Now, Valentine is a free pattern on my website that you can print out and make Valentine without making He Loves Me, or you can make He Loves Me first and use the leftover pieces to make Valentine. So Valentine is perfect for today. It's a simple, easy little quilt to make. And when we're talking about Valentine, we need to talk about our blanket stitching, or our stitching around the hearts. So I have a little heart sample here, and once I clear off my table, not only will I show you how to cut this heart shape, but I'll show you some different stitching options for that heart as well. Now, He Loves Me is very special to me, and one of the reasons why it's so special to me is because my son was dating a sweet young lady at the time, and I wanted the words He Loves Me, but I didn't want them in my handwriting. So I asked his girlfriend to write He Loves Me, and then I used my quilting in this case to go over her words, He loves me not. So it's just a special memory for me, even though that girl is no longer in the picture. We do have that really special little memory from I'd say it was probably my son's first girlfriend, I would say. And I've made He Loves Me again in the gray fabrics, and this He Loves Me still in her handwriting, which is in the pattern. I did this with embroidery this time, and this one is hand embroidered. Wow, I hand embroidered this. That's unlike me. I also have one that I sent out to one of my friends who's a machine embroiderer. She has an embroidery machine, and she wrote he loves me not on her embroidery machine. I still have that set of blocks that I have not yet put together. But you can see the difference in the quilts just based on the color of the background. So much fun to make, such a sweet quilt, and it's absolutely beautiful hanging up on the wall. And again, I should have hung up my Valentine quilts for Valentine's Day, and I didn't, so they're all here for me to show you. What do I have here? Oh, I know. This quilt is not quite a heart quilt, but you might get that same feeling as the Two of Hearts. This one is Sienna Rooftops. And Bev Henyon, I know you're out there, and I know you are eyeing this quilt. And we got to get you to make your own, because I know this is a favorite quilt of yours. So this quilt is Sienna Rooftops, but it is made the exact same way as Two of Hearts. When you have a block and you cut a little heart out of the corner of your block, you end up with two little bonus hearts. So if I take a dark block and I cut out two little hearts from the corners, not only do I get a dark block here, but I get the two little corners to put on another piece. So Two of Hearts and Sienna Rooftops are basically the same technique. This one's a little bit more complex because I'm cutting two hearts from every square, and on Two of Hearts, I've only cut one heart from every square. But the technique is very similar. Two of Hearts is a separate pattern, and Sienna Rooftops is a pattern in my second book. So the book is called Hearts and More, Rotary Cut Applique, because there I am, the Queen of Hearts. Hearts and More, Rotary Cut Applique is the book that I wrote about using the Hearts and More tools. And this quilt is in that book. All right, let me toss that one down, and we'll go through a couple more of my heart quilts. Oh, that's not a heart quilt at all. That's a different quilt than I thought it was, so I'm going to toss that down. And this one's not a heart quilt, but I'm going to show it to you anyway. Back in the day when I was doing quilt shows all over the country, one of my favorite quilt shows was the Vermont Quilt Festival. I'm so thrilled that they are running the Vermont Quilt Festival again this June. Unfortunately, I put my application in too late to get one of my quilts hanging in the show. But I'm hoping to go up to that show anyway because it is near and dear to my heart. On the very first day of the show, they have a champagne and chocolate reception. They walk around with champagne and chocolates and hand them out to all of the participants, the vendors, etc. etc. Anybody who is registered for the Quilt Festival can come to the champagne preview. Now, one year they had a strawberries and chocolate preview. So I made a quilt in honor of the strawberries and chocolate. Now, some of you recognize this pattern as my Hope's Diamond pattern, but I thought it was appropriate for today, even though it's not a heart quilt, because it has those colors of chocolate-covered strawberries. Now today I'm going to my guild meeting. The Marathon Quilters in Hopkinton, Mass meet on the second Tuesday of the month. So even though it's Valentine's Day, I'm going to my guild meeting this evening, and I'm going to be making chocolate dipped strawberries as our snack for tonight for the meeting. So this quilt, I think I'll bring it with me. I love that story of the champagne and chocolate preview. One year we had champagne, chocolate, and strawberries. Now, another quilt that I thought was appropriate for this session is called Hugs and Kisses. So since I am, just dropped my phone, since I am sharing with you all of our Valentine's Day quilts, this one just fit the bill. It's called Hugs and Kisses for obvious reasons. Look at those hugs and kisses across one of the rows of this quilt. We call this the Hugs and Kisses row. Then we have a tulip row. And then we have what we call a rick-rack row. Each one of these rows on this quilt was made with the Leaves Galore tools. So all 3 of the rows, and they repeat again on the bottom, all 3 of the rows were done with the hearts and more tools. Then you can put a word in the middle of your quilt. We used faith. How about faith, hope, and love? Those are beautiful girls' names as well. So you can make this as a little girl quilt for a new baby in your life. And I love the idea of faith, hope, and love. If I put love right there in the middle, it really would accentuate those hugs and kisses row. So in this pattern, which is a separate pattern sold on my website, and by the way, Joanne, our shipper, she ships all of your orders from the website. Joanne is the author of this pattern, and she made this quilt, and I just love the Hugs and Kisses quilt. So Hugs and Kisses is available on the website. It is a freestanding pattern. It's not in a book. It's a pattern by itself, and it uses the Leaves Galore tools. Okay, what else do we have here? Well, you know what? I've got another bouquet quilt, so why not let me share that with you? The other bouquet quilt was on a blue background. This was my original quilt on the gray background, and it has that pretty little heart border. So I'm going to set this quilt aside because I'm getting to the bottom of these quilts. And as I get to the bottom of these quilts, I'm uncovering my workstation so that I can show you how to make some of these heart shapes. Now, I did show you that we had Unchain My Heart. I showed you a blue version. And I have that same quilt in red, and I thought I'd show that to you right here because this is, again, the K-Facet Fabrics. I have a red version, I have a blue version, and it's so sweet and so easy to make. Then when you have the leftover pieces from this quilt, remember I said I love bonus quilts, right? So if you want to use the leftover pieces from cutting out those chains, you can make a miniature chain, and you can make a miniature Unchain My Heart quilt. Now these bonus patterns are often free on my website, and this is a free little bonus pattern that you can go to SuePellinDesigns.com, go under, I'm not sure, patterns. Anyway, one of the categories under the shop is free downloads. So you can get this as a free download, and you can print this out yourself and make the miniature Unchain My Heart. Now, of course, I made this as a bonus for the quilt itself. So if you make the quilt first, which is a separate pattern that you can purchase, if you make the quilt first, this little miniature quilt is made from all of your leftover pieces. So you might want to make it by itself, or you might want to make it as a companion to the larger quilt. I have one more quilt here to show you, and this quilt is in the book. This is called the Row Quilt. Not very creative name. I get tired of naming quilts, so sometimes I get lazy and I just called this the Row Quilt. And it is made from 3 different rows once again. One of my rows has the tiny little hearts, the curved edge hearts with leaves underneath. So that is one row. Then we've got what I call the lollipop row. It has lollipop flowers. So it has flowers made with circles, 3 different sizes. All of those circles are cut with the Hearts and More tool. Then it has our row with the linked hearts. And that's one of the techniques that I want to show you today. So I'm going to leave the linked hearts out so you can see as we create those hearts how they work into our quilts. Now let me go to your questions and see if you have any questions. Just wanted to pop in a moment from the West Coast. Happy Valentine's Day. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, Bev, I saw your favorite quilt come across and I immediately thought of you. Penny is showing us where to find the Unchain My Heart free download. So it is under products, and you can copy and paste that that address right into your address bar, and that'll bring you directly to the free download. That might be hard to do, so what I would recommend is you search free downloads on my website. It's going to come up with a whole page of free downloads so that you can find the one that you want to use. Okay, Evelyn, welcome. I was just down in Florida and I didn't get to see you. Barbara Collins, welcome. Happy Valentine's Day from Story City, Iowa. I think I checked in on that one before. Okay, excellent. It's Wendy. Oh, hi, Wendy. Nice to see you. All right, so I've shown you all of my quilts with hearts in them, or all the ones I could find this morning. And now I want to show you how we're going to cut out those hearts with our easy to use Hearts and More tools. So there is one heart here on the floor. Let me pick that up. And I want to show you this little heart because this is my sample for all of the different stitching options for some fusible applique. Now I say all your stitching options, absolutely not. You can use any stitch on your sewing machine to secure the edges of your fusible applique. But I want to change my camera so that you can see this up close. Let me go ahead and see if I can find my overhead camera. There we are. So I can give you a little closer view of this heart. So I have cut out this fusible applique heart by putting Misty Fuse on the back of my fabric. Then I'm going to use my Hearts and More tool, and I'll show you that in just a second, to cut out this beautiful little heart shape. After fusing the heart shape onto our background fabric, we're going to choose a decorative machine stitch to go along the edge. So I have blanket stitch here in both a tiny little version and a large version. Then we have what I call a baseball stitch or a feather stitch over here. We have a zigzag over here, and sometimes I even do straight stitch along the edges of my applique. Now you're going to see a little marking right here in chalk. That's because when I'm doing my blanket stitching, I want my blanket stitching always to be perpendicular to the edge of the applique. So as I get into these curved parts of the applique, I imagine a button in the center of this circular part of the heart, and I'm always aiming my applique stitching right at that button in the middle. So I'm greatly exaggerating. If my stitch goes across and then in, across and then in, and it's teeny tiny, but I'm always aiming that stitch that goes in to the very center of this circular pattern right here. And that's how you get some beautiful blanket stitching around your applique shapes. Now there are stitches that are easier than the blanket stitching. This feather stitch, for example, doesn't have to match the exact edge of your applique. Because the stitch goes off in each direction and then it angles up in between the stitches, there is no straight stitch along the very edge of the applique. For that reason, it's not as good at covering the raw edge. I actually prefer that blanket stitch that has a strong straight stitch right along the edge of the applique shape. But this feather stitch is very forgiving. So if you're new to applique, you may want to try the feather stitch before you perfect your blanket stitch. To me, it's a little bit of a cheater, isn't it? Because you don't have to be quite as precise. I love the blanket stitch where we have that straight stitch right along the edge of the applique. It finalizes your heart. It really makes it finished, and it prevents this edge from fraying, excuse me, when you have that blanket stitch so closely spaced along the edge of your applique. So how are we going to applique this quilt? We're going to cut out our applique shapes using a rotating mat. Now let me just grab my mat that I have over here. I'm going to get ready for some cutting. And I just noticed that I don't have my rotary cutter on my station. So let me grab my rotary cutter and let me show you how to cut out this heart shape using the Hearts and More tool. So any heart shape that you have in a pattern, you're going to be able to find the right tool to make that heart shape. Now this one's too small. This is the 3-inch end, and it looks like the 4-inch end is going to be a better size to cut out this heart shape. Now it may not be perfect if you have a pattern that's already created and it wasn't created by me. But you can get the approximate shape and size of your heart with the 8 different ends on these 4 tools. So choose one of the 4 tools, the closest size to the heart that you want to make, and then you're going to place it on that heart, and you're going to find your innermost point. It's here on the 90 on this heart template, and then your bottom point. It is on the T on this template. So I know that if I want to cut out this heart shape, I need to cut from 90 to T on the tool. So let me grab some fabric. I don't think I have any pink fabric handy, but I do have some purple. So let me grab, oh, I've got some red. Let's grab that red fabric. And, oh, I even have some pink. But let's grab the red fabric. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold that fabric as wide as that heart needs to be. So this heart, if you measure this, we've got 4 inches and 4 inches. That heart is about 8 inches across. So I'm going to fold this fabric over by half the width of that heart, just about 4 inches. And I'm going to measure with my tool. I need to go a little bit wider. In fact, if I used the board, I could measure over 1, 2, 3, 4 inches and fold right over to that point. So now I'm going to just smooth out that fabric, keep the fold on my left, and now I'm going to place that tool on the fold. Now I know that I need to cut from 90 to the letter T, but I also need to know that I'm using the straight edge of my tool to make a straight edge heart. Now there are times that I want to use the curved edge of my tool. That's going to give me a curved edge heart, but that's not the one I'm going for right now. Now that fabric is so close to my tool that I'm going to change fabrics. I don't want to use that fabric because it's going to be hard for you to see. So let me grab this lighter blue fabric, and that will be a little bit easier for you to see with this orange tool. So I'm going to fold this over by about 4 inches. Okay, I'm going to place the tool with the 90-degree marking on the fold and the capital letter T on the fold. That's going to give me that same size heart that I have right here on my sample. Now I've already got fusible on the back of my fabric. This has the Misty Fuse on it. So I'm just going to carefully cut around this tool. Now I do have heart-shaped Grace True Grips on the tool. Those prevent your tools from slipping on your fabric as you cut. And because I turn my tool over to use the straight side or to use the curved side, I've got those heart shapes on both sides of my tool. They are rubberized hearts that prevent your tools from slipping. So I'm going to place the 90-degree marking and cut around to the capital letter T. If I'm a left-handed cutter, I'm going to start at that 90 and I'm going to cut counterclockwise down to that T. But because I'm a right-handed cutter, I'm going to hold my fabric the exact same way. But instead of starting up here at the 90 with my left hand, I'm going to start down here at the T with my right hand. Now I'm just going to peek under there to make sure that I have enough fabric and I'm not going to have a little divot cut out of my heart. And I'm just on the curve of the fabric there, so I know I'm good to go. I'm going to start cutting down here, cut up and around, and you can see why that rotating mat is such a key player in this process. This is the rotating mat made by Martelli. It's my favorite rotating mat. It works beautifully for working with these curved tools, so you can easily cut out hearts, circles, ovals, teardrops, water droplets, and even leaves from your fabric. So just like this heart, this is the exact same size heart. Look how precise that is. because I measured my starting point and my ending point on the tool before I started. Now I also know that this is the same size heart that I used in the Conversation Hearts quilt. So let me show you that quilt once again and all the little hearts that I have stenciled. So this, I believe, and I might be wrong, it's not quite the same size heart, I don't think, but let's take a look. Oh yeah, there we go. It's pretty close. So these little hearts with the stencil designs, this is in the Conversation Hearts pattern. The stencil comes with the pattern. So after you fuse down your hearts onto the background and before you stitch them, you'll be stenciling those letters right on your heart with the stencil that's provided. I give you a couple of different ways to stencil those letters, and one of them is as easy as using a red Pigma marker to fill in the space between the lines of the stencil. Then, after your stenciling is done, you're going to do your blanket stitching. Why do I do that after the stenciling is done? Well, what if I make a mistake with the stenciling? I don't want to waste my time stitching. I'd rather just toss that piece aside, cut a new heart, and do the stenciling again to make it perfect. Then, after the stenciling is done, I'm going to do my blanket stitching around the edges. Now, because I have the Misty Fuse on the back of that fabric, that Misty Fuse, we're going to be able to iron that in place, and that's going to keep the edges beautiful for our blanket stitching. Now, on the blanket stitching for this quilt, I matched my threads. The pink heart has pink thread, the blue heart has blue thread, and the green heart has green thread. That really gives you a beautiful look. From a distance, it's going to look just like a hand applique quilt. But once you get up close, you have that added benefit of having the pretty little stitch around the edge. I used a nice, shiny rayon thread on this quilt to accentuate the blanket stitching, and I just love the effect that it gives. So cutting your hearts is not difficult to do, but I also mentioned that in addition to our straight edge hearts, we can also cut a curved edge heart with our tools. So I'm grabbing my smaller tools right now, and I want to show you how we're going to make this heart chain border. Well, this is a technique that I teach in the bouquet class, the bouquet workshop, as well as in the bouquet pattern, and I'm going to show you that right now. I'm going to use a little bit more of this fabric because I've got a space right here that I know I can fit one of those curved edge hearts. So I'm going to fold my fabric, and I'm going to use my Hearts and More template B this time. The last time I was cutting, I was using Hearts and More template C. So I'm going to put my templates away so I know that they're in order, and I'm going to put away my template D, and then template C, and B is going to go right there. Okay, good. Now I feel a little bit more organized. Let me grab my 28mm rotary cutter, and we're going to cut around template B. I'm going to use the large end of template B, and I'm placing the 90 on the fold and the small letter M on the fold. Why did I say capital T before when I was making this block, and now I'm using the small letter M? Well, the small letters are on the curved side of the tool. The capital letters are over here on the straight side of the tool. So if I'm going from 90 to capital T, I'm going to get a straight edge heart. But if I go from over here 90 to the small letter M, I'm going to get a curved edge heart. So let me cut that curved edge heart for you. I'm going to slide up so I can use up all that fabric. I'm going to make sure I'm on the 90 on the fold of the fabric, the small letter M on the fold of the fabric, and I'm going to cut around that curved heart. Now when you're cutting these circular patterns, you're going to cut very slowly. And I always make sure I remove the fabric and not the tool, just in case I have to do a little recutting. I don't think this blade is very sharp. So there you have it. We've got our curved edge heart that looks just like this. Now, I don't just want that curved edge heart. I want to make a curved edge heart with the center cut out from the middle. So I'm going to turn my tool over and I'm going to center this curved heart right in the middle of this one to make that 3/8 of an inch wide heart, just like this. Okay, so we've got our cute little inside heart. We've got our beautiful outside heart here, and it was so easy to cut. Now, let's go ahead and cut another one from this orange fabric, because I want to show you how we're going to link those hearts together. So we're going to cut from the 90 over here, all the way to the small letter M. Okay. Then we're going to turn our tool over. We're going to cut out the inside of that heart, making sure that we've got a nice little border all the way around, just like that. And here we go. We're cutting out the inside of that heart. So you can see how easy it is to make these cute little heart shapes. Now that little bonus heart that we have, the bonus heart that comes from the center of this heart, that's what we use for the hearts on our bottom of our row quilt. So this little heart and two little 3-inch leaves make the bottom border for your quilt. This heart makes the heart chain border. So how are we going to link these two hearts? We're going to place one heart on top of the other. Okay, one heart goes on top of the other. And I'm going to grab a little pair of snips. Where those two hearts overlap, we're going to do a little slit right there. And then I'm going to tuck these two ends under the heart where it crosses the other heart. So by doing that little slit, you're able to chain these hearts together. So let's do that again without the quilt underneath. I'm going to do it over here on my cutting mat so you can see that a little more easily. So we have two hearts that are complete hearts. We're going to place one on top of the other, and they just come together here. They just kiss right here on the inside edge. Sorry about that. Gilligan's probably barking at the mailman. We're going to cut that top that's on that heart that's on top, and then we're going to tuck these ends right up under the heart that it was going over. That links your two hearts together in order to make a heart chain. Now I'm going to come back on the screen to you. I'm done with that part of the demo, and I want to come back to you. That little heart chain can be done in so many different ways. I've used it on the My Magical Garden quilt as a ring to make a round ring for a Baltimore style block. I've used it on my borders, and it turns the borders beautifully to go around all four corners. I've also used it on the row quilts, just going straight across those rows. So that heart chain is a really nice little technique. Now, if you can make a heart chain, you can also make a chain out of circular rings and out of those ovals. So I hope that you will try this technique and do some fusible applique using your Hearts and More tools to make beautiful applique hearts. Now, I just thought of that little name, the Queen of Hearts, this morning because we're always joking that my associate Penny is Princess Penny. And I was thinking that if she gets to be Princess Penny, I think that today on Valentine's Day, I'm going to call myself the Queen of Hearts. If you love what I've been doing today and you would like to work with me, The membership is a wonderful place where we can work together monthly. We have 2 days a month where we can get together once for a workshop and once for a sit and sew, an all-day sit and sew where we can just hang out together and work together. So if you'd like to join Ahead of the Curve membership, you're going to go to SuePellinDesigns.com and you're going to search on Ahead of the Curve. And many of the people that have been commenting over here on the side are my Ahead of the Curve members. If membership is not something that you're interested in, then you might want to do just one course with me. We have a 6-week course coming up on gradations. Gradations is this beautiful quilt behind me that gives you all of the basics for rotary cut applique. If you want to learn those rotary cut applique basics that you can apply to any quilt in the future, you can join me for gradations. During our promotion for gradations, not only are you going to get the course, but you'll get a free template delivered right to your door with free shipping. I'm going to include the Grace True Grips on the back of the tool, or a sample of the Grace True Grips that you can put on the back of the tool, and you'll be able to practice with your Petite Leaves Galore tool to see if this is something that you're going to fall in love with. Now, I love fusible applique, and I love getting other people addicted to applique the way that I am, because I hope that you'll want to make one of each of these quilts in your future and do them in a faster and easier way. So come join me for gradations. You have until February 19th to sign up and get your free tool. Then, if you want more of what we do, Ahead of the Curve membership will definitely be for you. So I hope you've had fun today on Valentine's Day going through some of my heart quilts. And it really warms my heart to see all of you here with me today. Have a happy Valentine's Day and go make some beautiful heart quilts of your own. It was such a pleasure to see you, and thanks for coming.